Let me call the March 26th, 2025 meeting of the Monroe County Capital Improvement Board to order. So let's begin by taking attendance.
All right. John Weikart,
Present.
Doug Bruce,
Present.
Jeff McKim,
Present.
Jay Bear,
Present.
present. I saw his lips move.
Present.
Jim Silverstein,
Here.
present. I'm not hearing any of those, so we'll go from there. Adam Teese.
Present.
And Joyce Poling. All
Okay.
right. Did I get everybody?
I think so. Thank you. Let me mention, I guess, as a way of housekeeping, you've got these microphones in front of you. When you're speaking or want to be recognized to speak, you need to hit the button so your mic is red. The reason is that if we're not talking into the microphones, we're not being captured for posterity in terms of the recordings. So perhaps you don't have anything interesting to say and you prefer not to be captured anyway, but otherwise you got to hit the red button. And they can't all be on at the same time, because if they're all on at the same time, which should be easy, then they don't work. So if you want to be recognized or have something to say, please remember to hit the red button, or I'll say, Joyce, did you hit the red button? So having said all of that, item number 2 is approval of consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the board meeting of February 19th, the claims, and a financial report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
So we've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Whitlatch, would you please take the roll?
Sure. John Weikart.
Yes.
Doug Bruce.
Yes.
Jeff McKim.
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Yes.
Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Those were 2 affirmatives, I can tell you. Adam Teese.
Yes.
And Joyce Poling.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure why we're not hearing our 2 virtual members, so just wave your hand and then we'll recognize that that's there you go, that's an approval. Thank you. Item number 3, treasurer's report. Mr. McKim, anything for a treasurer's report?
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Item number 4, city council action on bonding authority. I just simply wanted to note, I know that you all are aware that March 5th, the city council, by a unanimous vote of those present, moved our project forward to bonding. I believe the resolution actually created the building corporation, which then is allowed to move the bonding forward. But I do want to note how appreciative I certainly am of the city council's action on this, but how appreciative I also am of the fact that we have 4 elected bodies who have all come together to move this project along to this point where we're now moving to bonding. And at that city council meeting, and I want to recognize Sydney Zulik is here, one of our city council members, that at that meeting, Mayor Thompson, Jennifer Crossley, president of the county council, Julie Thomas, president of the county commissioners, all spoke in support of this project. So again, all 4 of our elected bodies that created an interlocal agreement that have made all this possible were supportive of it, as well as all the members of the public, members representing the chamber, the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, the public in general, who all spoke so supportively of the project. So I just wanted to make that public note as part of our meeting. Item number 5 is a resolution from Bond Council regarding real estate transfer. Mr. Whitlatch.
Yes, I can report, and this is a big event and a big step forward in the process. This has to do with the real estate transfers. I have here before me the deeds that have been signed by the county commissioners for the real estate related to the building where we are, which is the original convention center and related property that's owned by the county for that. And I have a separate deed for all of the real estate that is located east of College Avenue. That has been signed by Julie Thomas on behalf of the county commissioners. I will be handing it over to Jeff Cockrell, who I think I just saw in the back of the room, and he will be recording those documents today. Tomorrow. The next step in that process, now that we have the real estate coming to us, is that it will be transferred to the city of Bloomington who will then transfer it or use it for purposes of securing the bond proceeds and financing for the real estate. So that will be our next step. And the resolution that I'm asking to be approved today, which I've provided to each of you, basically is that resolution approving that the property that's been deeded to us for the two areas that I discussed, the current convention center and the real estate east where the new construction will occur, will be transferred by us to the city. And the city will then get it to the building corporation, I believe, is the process that will happen from that point forward. The resolution approves that further transfer and approves that John and others are authorized to sign and the resolution and proceed with that process. So that's where we are now. There is additional real estate that may come to us or will come to us from the county in the future, and that is the real estate west of the Beeline Trail, which is not part of at least the current project. And we will also be, the city is also committed property to us, which is the parking lot to the south of our current building. So those will be additional in the future, but what is needed for the bond project is the property that I'm talking about right now. So that's the process. I guess I would ask if there's any questions from anybody on the CIB.
Why don't we see if there's a motion to approve the resolution, and then we can open it up for discussion or questions. So do we have a motion to approve the resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. So now we are open for questions, comments, or discussion from any member of the board. Okay, seeing and hearing none. Mr. Whitlatch, do you want to take the roll?
Yes. John Weikart,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Yes.
That's a yes. Oh, I heard him. Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Oh, heard it. Great. We're in business. Adam Teese.
Yes.
And Joyce Poling. All right. Thank you, everyone. And while I have the floor here, I know that Tenley Drescher Rhodes, who is bond counsel, is on the call. And I would just, if she has anything to add or anything else that she feels we need to do in regard to this resolution or this process, I want to make sure, since we aren't going to meet again for a month, that we give Tenley a chance to make sure we've got everything she needs.
I thank you very much for your vote today. Nothing at this time. Reserve the right to potentially come back to you all, but just thank you for your vote today.
Thank you, Tenley. I appreciate it. All right. That's all I have, John.
Item number 6, design update, including the lead owner project requirements and basis of design documents, and that's Schmidt. And there are 2 microphones there at the end of the table, if you would please use those.
Thanks, everybody. Is that working? Excellent. All right. We've got a couple things for you today that are really important. One is the site plan development, which is related directly to needing your approval for bid package 1 to be released. That's going to be an action item. And also the OPR, which is related to lead. So we're going to spend more time on lead today than we have in the past, what we're doing, what credits specifically we're going to be asking for. Not going to spend much time here. Our project goals have not changed. They remain the same today as they were when we started 2 years ago working on this project. Our public input, our through lines of feedback have remained the same as well, and we believe are integrated within the current design. Schedule 2 has remained fundamentally the same. We are on schedule for our GMP number 1 here at the end of March, with 2 more GMPs coming up. One in the middle of April, one towards the end of June, with construction starting June of this year. Pretty exciting. With expansion construction still scheduled to be complete February 2027. All right. So in detail, one of the things I did want to touch on was the BZA and plan approvals. We have received everything that we have asked for with a lot of great work with on the owner side and with the design team. Most of those were related to site and site approvals. So let me just turn it over to talk about permitting and what's next and what we've done so far.
Thank you, sir. I put together a rough schedule of what we anticipate having to run through with the city and CBU on review. Starting tomorrow, hopefully we'll submit our permit applications to both CBU and the City of Bloomington Planning Department, and they'll disperse it throughout City Hall for review comments. Typically, the review comments come back within 2 to 3 weeks, and then we try to reply within a week after that. So I've charted 3 rounds of review. Lately for us, the rounds have been 3 to 4. I'm hoping that 3 will do it. We're going to plan to meet with each group individually and run through our plan so we have an understanding between us and their reviewers so that we don't have people guessing, and to try to keep it conformed and in line. So hopefully within 3 reviews, we should have approvals by June 13th. And then with the SWIP, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan that CBU reviews, and then it has to go up to IDEM. But it just goes up to their portal, and within a week, several days or a week, we'll get approval back on that, and we can break ground. So that takes us through that June 18th release of the construction stormwater general permit notice of sufficiency. And while we're doing that, hopefully Weddle Brothers is on site and staged to start construction mid-June or as soon as we get that release. An update on plans. Here's our landscape. Well, the highlight of this sheet is the landscape plans. All we have are street trees. We've lost a couple of trees up here due to utilities, and there's just absolutely no room. We've got 4 utilities that are in there, and we cannot fit the trees in. And with our BZA approval, there is some flexibility with the planning department to allow us to work with trees and limitations. And here's the north part, a zoom in of the north part of the site. We've got our motor coach pull off, and we've worked with Neil Coppers and city engineering to come up with what we believe will be acceptable, and it includes rechannelizing the east and westbound lanes of 3rd Street to condense them down to allow this to project out and provide room, 9-foot lane for a bus pull-off. So those are the improvements on the north. Now we do have the plan refined with the doors set back a little bit. And then, yeah, we were working with these entrances and pulling these doors back to have that projection to satisfy city planning's architectural review. And then on the south end of the lot, we still have the street trees, but this is back of house. So there's some new elements that we've tried to identify and design around. We've got a trash compactor, and then we have a recycling bin or recycling container. And then now we've worked in a walkway on the back here that allows trash to come through the building and be put into the compactor and recyclables into that bin. And then it loops around so they have clear walking room around that part of the working area. We still have our ramp that provides access for up to, David always wants to get a fire truck in there. So that's what it's set up to do. And then, of course, loading dock for 2 semi-trailers to pull in. And what other thing? Oh, and then to satisfy city planning screening requirements, we have to provide an enclosure for the dumpster and compactor. And so this is the new screening that we've introduced, and that's above and beyond the screen wall here. Is there potential for sight lines to see these elements here, and as well as from Walnut Street across and even Smith Avenue looking north. So we're working on that element to satisfy city planning's requirements. see, what's the next slide? Oh, here, utility relocations. So we've worked continuously with Duke Energy, Comcast, Smithville, CenterPoint Energy, and AT&T. AT&T and CenterPoint are able to relocate their facilities off of the campus area or our site and can do it without having to relocate around the building. Now we have Duke in this corridor that's in red. We have Duke Energy and Comcast and Smithville, and they just have to run from the alley. We abandon their path within the footprint of the building, so they need to get around and reconnect on the north side of 3rd Street. So that's the routing, and we've got everybody getting their applications in. We're still hounding Duke Energy, and for both an estimate and the submission of their application for work in the right of way with the city. We'll have another meeting with them tomorrow. Every Thursday we meet to try to get all the groups together. Okay. Oh, was there something else? Let me share something else. Go back one. And just of interest, we have an underground detention basin here that we have to detain our runoff so we don't increase. Well, there's a set release rate, but basically we're not going to increase the runoff from the site. There's a filtering unit here for stormwater, and then up in this upper corner, up here, that little pink box, that's to filter the runoff from the skywalk. So we're doing every effort to comply with CBU's stormwater requirements. And so that little pink unit's going to be a bioscape stormwater treatment device that has some plants in it, and it'll be combined with the landscaping improvements in the plaza area. And then the one in our loading dock area is a canister filtration. They don't allow mechanical treatment devices anymore. We've got to actually filter it. So those are the stormwater improvements we're doing to bring this into compliance. And that's just a blow up of the north end showing the relocation of utilities. Just a blow up of the south. And then the green roof, which is a requirement for the green infrastructure part of stormwater quality. And it'll run along the lower bay that wraps around the high bay of the convention center. And that will treat, I think we had about 40% of or 60%, I'm sorry, of the required green infrastructure treatment. And we have no way to do the balance because we're keeping the high bay free for the potential of solar. We've got to be a solar ready building. And then the green roof has trays for plantings, and there's a little bit of stormwater retainage here, but they capture it, treat it, and then it's collected and comes down the roof drains into the building and out into our loading dock and detention area. And then this is a nice perspective of it just doesn't have the ramp in here, but it has the screening of the compactor and recycling container in an effort to screen it from views from Walnut College and Smith Avenue. And then we also have to screen all the rooftop units too. So anything that person can see walking by in the public right of way has to be anything that's mechanical or garbage related has to be screened to satisfy the city's UDO requirements. I think turn it back over to.
I'm not capable of apparently doing slides and the microphone at the same time. So we've been refining all of those details. It's a lot of little pieces and parts that all have to go together in what is a pretty small site. Like I said, we've been successful at getting everything that we've submitted for so far for regulatory agencies. We believe we're positioned well to move forward with our next round of submittals. The team's done a great job of keeping everybody engaged throughout the process. So meanwhile, we've been doing the exact same thing with the building itself, going through all the refinement of the details as we look towards finishing construction documents in June. And so things of note here that the team's been working pretty hard on are exactly what that entry is going to look like, how to get those doors, a space, a wall to swing out against so they don't go into the right of way, exactly how each canopy is going to frame up on each corner, working pretty hard on that, exactly how the glass railing and the curtain wall and the second floor of the deck come together to make a nice, clean, modern convention center that still fits its space and place. So working on details like that, we've also been working on details on the inside. And one of the most important things that we've been working on in the last few weeks is how Talicia's staff are going to operate this facility. So working pretty closely with her and her team on what that office space is going to look like, what the front concierge is going to look like, and how those things all come together. So you'll notice at each corner, right inside of our primary entries, we're showing concierge desks there that are permanently located there, working carefully to make sure that they are well positioned to greet any of our guests, any of our conventioners, and then working with the offices. That's what you see here in this light blue. How do the events office work? Where do private offices go? How do we make sure that the people using the facility day to day have the things that they need? And as we work through exactly how they're going to work, where all the furniture goes, how they all fit together, where the entrances and exits go, making sure that things like the desk fit into the context of the space so that they look like they belong there as a part of the design. And so you can see how those things have developed. And I think we're probably 98% there with how those details work. Another detail we've been working pretty carefully with is this big grand stair. We don't want people to bump their head as they walk through the stair. So trying to develop a small seating area that can catch the column, protect underneath the stair, and be a usable feature for the convention center itself. So working through details like that to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. We're doing the exact same thing with all the back of house, working through storage, working through the kitchen and the dish rooms, and how everything goes with the recycling and with the dumpsters. Go to the next one. Working through every detail of every piece of equipment. And again, I think we're probably 98% there with those details, making sure that we know how we're going to use the space exactly so that it works best for staff. Second floor plan really hasn't changed at all. The big change you remember from last time was making our roof deck larger, which did require a second egress stair. Those have been fully accommodated at this point. Second floor is very much like you've seen it. And then we've been spending a lot of time on the details of LEED. And so that is one of the approvals we're going to ask you today. So I'm going to turn it over to Eddie to talk about exactly where we think we're going to get credits, or at least attempt to get them.
Thank you. Yeah, Sarah got all the exciting, pretty stuff. I have the boring spreadsheets and text. So as part of just a little bit of background information, as part of the LEED process to get a LEED certified building, there's two steps. The first is you apply to the USGBC in your design phase with here are all the credits we're going to attempt to get. Some of them are design-based strictly, material selection or daylight and views, energy goals, that sort of thing. Some of them are construction-based, like amount of recycled materials off-site, how the landfill diversion works and things like that. And so there's a construction submittal that happens too. We'll be working very closely with Weddle and their team during that whole process because they'll have to provide monthly reports on all those pieces of information. All I have to say, we have to set those goals now for all of those things. And so the way that happens is through what's called the owner project requirements and basis of design, or OPR and BOD. So that's one of the things that we need to have you guys approve as part of this process so that we can work on our design submission that say this is how we're going to meet those goals. And so that the OPR is a written document that just lists through the different credits and how we're planning to meet them, which credits are important to the project. And it is what Reliance, who is our commissioning agent, will use to judge against are we meeting some of those things, especially when it comes to some of the systems and how they operate. They are going to be doing reviews of our documents. And again, they'll be using the OPR and the credits that we are applying for as their guideline. And they will also be reviewing submittals and the construction side of things as well, and working with the construction team as things are installed to make sure that they function properly. And that all that is a part of a credit on enhanced commissioning that you are getting or attempting to get as we're going towards LEED Silver. So the way this is broken out is there are goals around each category of the LEED process. I'm not going to read all of these. They are provided in your packet. But generally, it's the major general goals are to get LEED Silver. We know that's our goal of 50 points. We want to showcase strategic sustainable strategies and provide a great building for the environment, both ecologically and the community, which is what LEED focuses on. We have goals around the site and community, and that has to do with the connectiveness of being in an urban space. It's about having how it affects the microclimate in terms of heat island effect and things like that. We have water goals around minimizing water use, and that's through our plumbing fixtures. It's through the green roof is a part of that, and the irrigation we do on site, how the water is metered when it comes to the site. A lot of the goals are around health and wellness of the people in the building and around the building, with air quality, and that's one of the ones that is impacted by finishes and choosing finishes that don't emit harmful chemicals, and the HVAC systems that provide the cleanest air possible. Lighting in terms of how the lighting is controlled, the amount of lighting, the type of lighting, and then comfort in how the systems are, and that's thermal comfort, how the systems are controlling the temperature in the building. And then also how the users, and this is users in the general sense, not necessarily customers to the convention center, but Talisha and her operational staff can control the system. And then biophilia, so the idea of having more natural materials, wood and stone and that sort of thing in the building are seen as a positive. We do have goals around activity, so that central stair that Sarah was mentioning is part of that, to promote using that for getting up and down upstairs and downstairs versus just strictly looking at the elevator. And even the roof garden on the second floor is seen as a component of active design. Acoustics is very important. Obviously, it's extremely important just for the functionality of this space, but LEED also cares about acoustics. That spaces aren't too loud from a comfort standpoint or even damaging people's hearing. But also, so we have strategies around that. A lot of people think about energy as the main thing with LEED, and obviously that's a big thing. And that goes to both our mechanical systems, our electrical systems and lights, but also things like our exterior building envelope and making sure we're above code minimum for insulation values, our glass is high performing, and things like that. There's preferred system types that are in LEED that we're meeting. And the way those systems are controlled is very important. That's one of the main things that our Reliance will be commissioning and making sure is working the way we say it's supposed to work. And then operations is also a part of it. And a lot of that has to do with how the systems we put in place are operated as they're commissioned, and then making sure that they are monitored in a way that, in a year down the road, we could look back and say, okay, the design goal for energy use was X. After a year of the building being opened, we've used this much energy, and we can compare those measurements and making sure that we have a system to back check and make refinements and see how those things are being refined. There's a goal around surveying occupants in that first year to make sure how that works and that things are working the way we want. That's a lot of very dry information, and so it's important. And I welcome any questions you guys have around it. But basically, these goals are how we get to the 50 plus credits we're going after. They're all tied to credits in various ways, and so that's an important part of the project. So the last part of our presentation today, and then we go through next steps and questions and that sort of thing, is just kind of recap kind of where we're headed. So these are the same renderings you guys saw last month. So I'm just going to quickly flash through them of the exterior. Obviously, the roof garden, great outdoor space for the community. This is some of the areas that earlier versions of the areas that Sarah was talking about with the pre-function space and the stair. Great gathering spaces for the community that are exciting and filled with natural light, as we're showing. Obviously, the showcase is the exhibit hall that can be used for many things, whether it's a banquet, as we've shown, or lectures, or breakout meetings. Many flexible uses that we continue to add design and detail, and then updating the refinements as we go through. So that's the end of our summary for today. We have a few things, like Sarah mentioned, that we need to get approval for the approval bid for GMP1 for the OPR. As we move forward, we're going to be working on GMP 2 and 3 with Weddle and our team to get to the next step, and then work on our permitting. So that, I'll ask for questions.
Sorry, so you're asking us for approval on the owner project requirements that you presented?
Correct.
Okay, so is there a motion for the board to approve the owner project requirements as presented?
So moved. Second.
In a second. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Oh, Mr. Silberstein.
Yes, for Schmidt, I see that GMP1, the 3 levels of GMP are phased throughout the spring and summer. Could you just briefly tell us how those different levels are, how they're grouped? I mean, what's in GMP1 versus 2 and 3?
Yeah, I can do a brief summary. So GMP1 is all of the earthwork and site logistics to get them started, so that hopefully, as Bill described with the permitting process, as we get that finalized in early June, we'll, as soon as that's approved, we'll be ready for them to start. 2 and 3 are going to be some of the more, so 2 is some more long lead items with whether it's steel and equipment. And then GMP3 is basically the architectural elements, the exterior, interior of the building to finish out the project.
Okay, can I just ask you one other question, since I see this, the screen is up here with the LEED certification? I know that we're a little close on silver. Is there any part of the submission that you think might not qualify and we might have to look elsewhere to get to the silver level?
At this time, I don't believe so. We are tight in that we can't afford to lose many credits. We also take a very conservative approach on some of the credits that are multiple points. Like, for example, the energy credit, the main energy credit, you can earn anywhere from, I think, 0 to like 18 points, and we're being conservative on how many we think we can get to protect ourselves from that surprise down the road of, oh, you thought you were going to get 10, but you're only going to get 5. So we're intentionally not being super aggressive on that part. So I think we're okay with where we are now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or discussion or comments? Yes, Mr. McCann.
I have a question. This relates to, this is also on the lead owner requirements. I think it was maybe the very first slide on the owner requirements where you referred to water in the water section. There was some number of credits related to water usage reduction compared to the baseline. And how's the baseline determined? Yeah,
so the baseline is basically code minimum is what they consider. So okay. That would be if you were just if you were not applying for LEED and you went to the building department and said, I'm gonna use this many gallons per minute for my fixtures, that's what the requirement is. And LEED asks you to do more than that. So
okay, so it's based on number of fixtures.
It's number of fixtures and their flow rates basically is what it comes down to.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Are we going to have time to talk about any other topic? This is just about you're just asking for comments on the motion, correct?
Yes. I think we jumped ahead a bit on some of on the bidding process, but yes, just on the motion to approve the owner project requirements for LEED. So any other questions on that? All right, seeing none. Would you please take the roll, Mr. Whitlatch?
Yes. John Weikart.
Yes.
Doug Bruce.
Yes.
Jeff McKim.
Yes.
Jay Baer.
Yes.
Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Adam Teese. And Joyce Poley.
Let me ask back to Mr. Teese's question. I know we're going to, on another item on the agenda, talk about construction documents related to the bidding. Mr. Teese, were there other questions you wanted to ask in advance of that?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could go back to the building elevations real quick. First of all, I think you've really developed a very interesting window pattern. I think we're going to love it when it's all done. I think it's very interesting. I have a quick question about them. Are they actual mullions? Are they muttons? What are they?
They are all mullions. So
Okay.
it's
So they're actual window breaks at each
Mhm.
one. I think that'll help give, this a long-term durability to it. So I'm glad that we made that choice.
and just for a sense of scale, it's hard to see from the image, like how big are they, right? So you might think, oh, they're little tiny divided lights. Each of these little squares is about 2'6" by 3 feet. So
Yeah, they're not insignificant.
pretty large.
My question for both of you is the large brick fields that are covering up the least active parts of the building. Is there any chance that there could be some level of patterning and or relief on the brick to create some level of rhythm in those walls that gives a more consistent rhythm than just a blank large brick field?
Absolutely. So it's actually a very timely question. Just previous to this meeting, we were meeting with the bead group, and those locations we purposely kind of held back on how detailed we make them because they're also prime locations for art. And so we want to make sure if there's an art installation going there that we're working with that. And so I think as we add a layer of design as we finish up the detailing there, I think that's certainly an area to look at.
I guess I just would be asking that it not just be art, but the actual material articulates at some level to add rhythm, because art will come and go as it gets good, bad, indifferent, weather different. This building hopefully is lasting for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and we have been working through that. For an example, on the brick column details, that is not just a plane of brick. There is soldier courses and details built into that just aren't represented here in this graphic very well. But yes, we agree with you. Point taken, and it's being worked on.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, so next item number 7 is art update with Bead Advisory Group. Eddie met with the Bead Advisory Group prior to this meeting, so we just asked him to give a brief update on, I think it's Eddie or whomever.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. Yeah, so we had a great meeting with Galen and his group. Art could be so many things, and so our biggest challenge is how do we go from the giant world of art to whatever we're going to decide. So we met with them and went through, I think it was 15 different possible locations of various types of art, whereas 3-dimensional, graphic, lighting, all different times. None of it's been defined yet, so it's still up in the air. We're still working through that process. So we had a great discussion about how do we narrow this down, because that's going to be one of the things that we need to do, and how do we decide out of those 15, and then there was discussion about other places that would be good as well, but beyond those 15, how do we decide which ones we're going to focus on with our budget? How do we, and the important thing from our perspective, selfishly, is what are the ones that are going to impact the building construction? Where do we need to provide support or various accommodations? Because what we don't want to have happen is we build this beautiful building, art gets applied to it, and it very much looks like it's art applied to a building. We want it to be integrated into the design as much as possible. And so we're trying to get ahead of some of those decisions to make sure that when we do go to Weddle with our drawings, they are able to account for that from a budget standpoint. So even if all the details aren't figured out yet, we've got money set aside for some of those things so that we can come out in the day with as much integration as possible. And so we left the meeting, I think, with the goal of over the next month, they're going to work to define both their process for selecting the artist and then also narrowing down on the location, so that in about a month's time, we'll have kind of that list of here are the primary spaces that we're going to focus on. And from there, we'll know which ones are going to affect the building and which ones are more applied things that can change more easily and that sort of thing. So that's the update. I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions about that? I would simply remind the board, not that you need to be reminded, and the public, that 1% of the construction budget is dedicated to the arts, so that's $520,000. So that's a budget that they're working with in terms of art. I'm not an artist. I mentioned my only contribution to the meeting was I mentioned to them, don't forget that we are creating one convention center. So it's not just the 60,000 square feet across the street. It's how we can also may want to incorporate anything into this current facility as well. And that Eddie described the process, and that the BEAD advisory group will develop a process and then bring it back to this board as a recommendation, and then we will accept that process as how we move forward to integrate art into the project. So those are my reactions and comments. Any questions from anyone else? Okay, thank you. Item number 8, preparation for construction update. Weddle, Josh?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So we have held a networking event for subcontractors and suppliers. We had our first session on the 13th of March, and we had 16 companies in attendance and approximately 30 individuals. To advertise that event, we did social media postings, website postings. I know between Weddle's website to CIB's website, there was a pretty good flow of information put out there. We also did individual calls and emails to contractors to make sure they knew about the event. We're holding a second event tomorrow at 10 a.m. Here in the convention center. So we hope to have even better attendance for that session as well. And that's all in preparation for guaranteed maximum price GMP1, which was kind of talked about earlier, but the scope that we're looking at for that GMP is primarily earthwork, site utilities, and the maintenance of traffic and site logistics. So we're ready to hit the ground running, pending approvals from the CIB and also from the regulatory things that Bill's working on from the civil engineering side. So schedule for GMP1, finalized bid documents. We're working on the kind of the front end contractual points here to make sure we convey to the bidders, to have a team review by the end of next week on April 4th. Put those out for a bid on Monday, April 7th, and have a 3-week bid period, receive bids back on April 29th. Then we'll do our scope reviews. We'll meet with the bidders, make sure we have everything accounted for the proper way, and do an internal presentation with the team, probably with the Schmidt team and with JS Held on May 6th, in preparation for presentation at the May 21st CIB board meeting to get approval to move forward with GMP1. One other thing that's not on here, our pre-qualification form was reviewed and approved and posted, so it's live. We've had interest already from contractors wanting to make sure that they're being pre-qualified for the project. So that's our update for GMP1.
Okay, questions for Mr. Noggle? Yes, Mr. McKim?
This is probably obvious, but I assume that the demolition of the building, the old Napa building, is in GMP1.
Yes.
And Josh, you mentioned 16 potential bidders, contractors at the meeting, your first meeting, and you could certainly have a different group of contractors, bidders come to the second meeting. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And also the 13th, earlier in the month, it was more spring break time. There were a lot of potential companies that reached out to us and said, we'll definitely be at the second one. So we anticipate equal, if not better, participation from different entities.
Well, we all know that the Earth stops revolving around the sun during spring break week in Bloomington. So perhaps we'll see more attendance at the next meeting. Thank you. Any questions? Any other observations? Any comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 9, construction documents approval. for release of GMP number 1 bidding and several items there. JS Hill.
Great. So thanks, everyone. You've heard a lot today about GMP1. If you recall many months ago when we asked you to approve the construction management contract and the architect's contract, we talked then about GMP1 and that this was the month that we were going to be bringing you the release of those documents. So in order for us to stay consistent with the contract and to ensure that the CIB knows and recognizes we are putting this out to bid out on the street through the CMC Weddle, we're asking for your approval today to release the documents. It doesn't commit you to construction contracts. It is merely a release of the bidding documents for public bidding.
So that you want, that requires formal action on our part.
does.
So is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
So we've got,
Second.
okay, so we had a motion by member Polling, seconded by member Baer. So let's open the floor for questions, comments, discussion. Seeing and hearing none, would you take the roll, please, Mr. Whitlatch?
John Weikart,
Yes?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Jay Bear,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Adam Teese,
Yes.
Joyce Polling.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, Weddle Brothers contract amendment for approval that includes tree removal and parking barriers installation and preparation for construction. Still a JS held item.
So this may be a little confusing because we're calling it amendment number 1, and we just talked about GMP number 1. So we will clarify that language in our final documentation here. But there is some early work that needs to happen, and that is because there is an ordinance within the state of Indiana related to bats and trees. And in order for us to construct the building, we need a few trees to come down. Of course, everyone, I think, is aware and saw it earlier in the presentation. We are bringing back new trees, right? So we are bringing new trees, but we do, in order to build the construction or the convention center building, do need to take down a few existing trees. We must do that before the end of March in order to stay compliant with the state's requirements for bats. So this is of a more urgent nature, a little bit snuck up, but fortunately, the CIB had the perfect meeting date in order for us to seek this approval through Weddle Brothers to do that work as part of their pre-construction. It includes the removal of the trees and the stumps, but also any kind of traffic barriers that we need to secure the site so that we can start to keep those who are maybe used to publicly parking there, there will be restrictions on that and have been for some time.
Okay, so again, you're looking for a motion from us to amend the contract for this purpose so that we can be a bat-free zone in the next 5 days?
Correct. And just to clarify, the contract that you are under right now with Weddle is for pre-construction services. That's everything they've been doing today with the scheduling and the cost estimating, things like that. This is actual construction work that we're asking to do that's necessary to move the project forward. And so the contract amount is $89,051.
Is there a motion to approve the contract amendment?
So moved.
Is there a second? Seconded by member Polling. So the floor is open for discussion, comments. Yes,
Could I clarify one thing?
sure.
It's written correctly, but I didn't say it exactly right. The pre-construction services was $65,000. You approved that back in July of 2024. This amendment is actually only $24,051 for a new total of $81,051. Again, the slide is correct. I just went to the bottom line.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Questions, comments, discussion? Mr. McKim?
Sorry, just how many trees are we talking about?
Say. Are being removed. Not very many. So
12. And you have enough time remaining in March to get it done? Okay.
yes, the answer is
Yes.
we've been working on it. We just needed to make sure that we've got all of the contractual pieces in place.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Whitlatch, would you take the roll, please?
John Weikart,
Yes?
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Jay Bear,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Adam Teese,
Yes.
Joyce Polling.
The next sound you hear will be chainsaws?
Yes, be looking for, as you drive by the site, for some things happening
Okay.
in the next couple of days.
Thank you. Item number 11, change order authorization for the CIB president for unknown field conditions. I think this is J.S. Held, and Mr. Enbrook may have observations as well. So
Great. So in anticipation, so again, trying to put context around what's happening here, it may feel a little bit early to be talking about change orders since we haven't asked you to fully commit to a guaranteed maximum price. However, through the claims process, you have already approved some utility work to happen by utilities. And anytime we do underground work with utilities, there's invariably something that is found. And so in anticipation that there could be something, not that there is, but there could be, and knowing that the CAB only meets once a month, we are asking you to give an authorization ability for John to approve up to a $25,000 change. That can continue on through with Weddle's work as well. So we're not limiting this to the utilities, excuse me. But we are asking for this. So again, it may feel a little bit early if you're in the construction world and say, why are we doing this already? That is the why behind now versus doing it a little bit later. This is also a process that has been successfully used at the city. And so, Jeff, I will allow you to share more of that.
Yeah, as Deborah said, one of the issues is time is of the essence when you get into construction. So with the board only meeting once a month, it's imperative that we be able to keep on schedule. This would allow John the ability to approve change orders that come that are unknown. Two things to add about that is, one, it would come out of the contingency funds that we have budgeted both in our side of the budget as well as the construction side of it. And we would retrospectively have the board approve those change orders as well. So we will bring those back to the board for a review and vote, but it would give John the ability to keep the construction going and not affect the schedule. So it was very effective with the city in that things come up as in construction. Adam, I'm sure you're well aware of that. Those kinds of things that happen on a quick basis. So happy to answer any additional questions.
just for clarification, so if something like this came up between meetings, I would be reporting it out at the very next meeting that this is what had happened and this was what was approved. And the alternative is we have to call special meetings every time a change order comes through. So the entire board would have to meet and act on it if something came up between meetings. So I just wanted to clarify those 2 points.
And the authority is with the CIB president, who happens to be John right now. We're not personally writing John's name in here.
And it would be reviewed. It would be recommended by Weddle or Schmidt and myself and Deborah's group will review and make a recommendation to John whether to approve or not.
So the authority is for the president of the board, whomever that person may be. Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to approve that change order authorization?
So second.
Okay. So Mr. Bruce, motion, and Mr. McKim second. Any discussion, comments, questions?
Yeah,
Mr.
this
T.
is entirely normal and happens every day. So I think this is very supported. And I just want to say, I've always wanted to make a motion, but the people here are the fastest motion on the planet. Every time, look at the video, we record this, I'm right on the button and they're always saying yes before I can say, I'm the father of 4 kids. I'm kind of slow that way. And just one day I want to make a motion. But I'm just not.
So you would not be a winner at Jeopardy?
That's what I was thinking myself.
Okay. Would one of you like to withdraw your motion?
We'll give him the next thing.
Okay, let's see. All right, so
Jim Silverstein.
Yeah, Mr. Silverstein.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think this is a great idea. I would assume, though, if we're bumping up against the limit of the contingency fund on these change orders, that it would come back to the CIB.
Correct.
Okay.
The other thing that I'll comment on is the resolution. If there is a need to act quickly on a change order that exceeds the $25,000 limit, the resolution's written in there that we can call a special meeting, but we can also act as we're permitted by statute by what's called unanimous written consent. We really can't do email votes because that wouldn't be a public meeting type thing, but we could try to do some things if we needed to by unanimous written consent in certain circumstances. So
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, and,
McCann.
and just to clarify that it wouldn't just be that the president would report, but the board would vote to ratify the decision. Is that
It would be a
after
part of the,
fact?
yeah, it would be a part of the consent
The
agenda.
consent agenda. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Bruce.
Yeah, I'll add on to what Adam was saying is that this is normal. I also think that, especially for a project of this size and this, well, time is of the essence, basically. And us having a special meeting, takes a couple of days where something may come up and we need an answer, or Weddle needs an approval rather quickly. And I think this is going to smooth the process. I think the process that we've had to get to this point has been quick and smooth, and this is a continuation of that as well. So it's needed.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, Mr. Whitlatch, would you take the roll?
John Weikart,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Jeff McKim,
Yes.
Jay Bear,
So I was going to let Adam do it. Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Adam Teese, and Joyce Pulling.
Okay, thank you. Item number 12, hotel update. Jane Coopersmith, Director of Economic and Sustainable Development for the City of Bloomington. I've asked Jane if she would be here today to give us an update on where she sees us being with the hotel project. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me here today. It's really a privilege to be able to support a tiny piece of this transformative project. So I think the broad headlines for the hotel update are that there is no formal change in status at this time. On a staff level, we continue to work on due diligence with the hotel developer, with Dora, and then the Louderbeck team as well. These are just very complex deals, and so we're continuing in due diligence, and we'll be beginning to take this before the RDC in the next month, and I will communicate about that with Mr. Weikart before we have anything on the agenda with the Redevelopment Commission related to the hotel. I think that's the most I can say at this time. I do want to state, we have very enthusiastic mayoral support for the location of the hotel, and coming out of this due diligence process, staff also is supportive of it, but we need to make sure that the RDC is leading the charge.
Sure. And I understand the sensitive nature of any discussions or negotiations with the developer. Did I understand when you said going to the RDC, do you anticipate doing that at your April meeting?
I anticipate that we will have something on the agenda at our first April meeting.
Okay.
It's not finalized yet.
Sure. Jane knows I'm going to say this because I've said it to her in our conversations that we've had. My emphasis on the sense of urgency about this. We made a selection of Dora as the hotel developer in October, and at the time we did that, we emphasized in October the sense of urgency about it because all three of those who submitted proposals told us that this was easily a 2.5-year project. And so 5 months after the referral, we're 5 months after the referral, which means we're 5 months farther away from having a hotel. And, my concern, and I'm sure the concern of others, is that, we will have our goal is to have an expansion open in January of 2027. And the longer it takes for this process with the hotel to play out, the further it is out from that date before a host hotel is open. So again, I just want to emphasize from our perspective, that sense of urgency. And in fairness to Jane, I've told Vince Dora the same thing. I've had contact with Vince and told him the same thing, that we're looking for movement on this. And if we don't see movement on this, then what is Plan B? And Plan B actually goes back to our hotel developer. If there's not movement on the former Bunger Robertson property, what's the hotel developer whom we've selected? What is their Plan B? So anyway, I just want to make that point that we all recognize the urgency of moving this forward. I know you do too. Any other comments, questions for Jane, observations from any other board members? Jane, thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to your future updates.
And I will be happy to show up and provide those in person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we go to old business, I want to recognize that Isabel Piedmont Smith from the City Council also joined our meeting, and I want to recognize her attendance. Thank you, Isabel, for being with us. Item 13, old business. Is there any old business to be brought before the board? Seeing none, new business to be brought before the board. And I will mention under new business that Mr. Whitlatch and I are hopeful of meeting with Mike McAfee of Visit Bloomington and Mike Campbell with the CVC, hopefully here in the very near future to discuss the co-location of Visit Bloomington in our convention center. You may recall that in the current space, there's been a room we've designated as a future assignable space. From every one of these iterations of these committees I've been involved with over the last 8 years, one of the goals has been how we can co-locate Visit Bloomington in our convention center. And if we think about that, what better way to market to conventioneers what's happening in Bloomington than to have Visit Bloomington be co-located in the facility where our convention goers are. So Mr. Whitlatch and I are hopeful that we'll be able to have that meeting with the two mics here in the next couple of weeks, perhaps, and then have something that we might bring back to you in April. So I just wanted to report that out under new business. Any other new business to be brought before the board? All right, comments from board members, item 15. Any comments from board members? Mr. McKim.
No, I think Mr. Thies.
Mr. McKim.
I just wanted to thank in particular the city council for great discussion during the bond hearing, and for being so supportive of the project, and for having great input throughout throughout the process, and also the other three elected bodies for their support. I know this has been so long in coming, and to have the commissioners and the mayor and the county council and the city council all rowing in the same direction is really is very heartening to those of us who have been involved in this project for well over a decade.
Mr. Thies, it's my honor and privilege to ask you what comments you have for us.
Life is awful unless you celebrate great people, and we don't do this enough in our world. And so I'm going to take a moment and let all of you know that our owner's representative on Monday night was named the Distinguished Alumni Award winner in Ball State University's College of Architecture and Planning. This is the highest honor that can be bestowed by our state architectural school. We're lucky enough that the person to my right received it the year before. And so I want to really acknowledge Deb and her hard work on our project. And this is really the high watermark for people in their career in Indiana related to Ball State School. So I wanted to take a moment to do that.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm a graduate of their political science department, but they don't give awards to people like us. So, well, congratulations. Any other comments from board members? Mr. Bruce.
I just wanted to make sure we felt like a game show over here, like Jeopardy or something. But maybe we could see about getting a faster unit for Mr. Thies for our next meeting.
It's not the machine, it's the person.
Perhaps I could spend more time looking directly across from me rather than looking to my right. That might help matters too. Any other comments? Comments from the public? Anyone from the public have a comment to make? And you have a 2-minute window of opportunity. Mr. Spoonmore, I know you can talk for 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. Our next board meeting is Wednesday, April 16th at 3 p.m. In this room. And with that, as I always say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. We are adjourned.